Hello, everyone. I am J. Todd Coleman, Creative Director of Crowfall, and this is Mark Hallish.
I'm Mark Hallish today. Hey, you know what? I have this card in front of me, and that can mean only one thing, Todd, and that is time for Ace Q&A August.
That's great. All right, that's awesome. What do you got? You got the questions for us?
I sure do. I have them right here in front of me. So let's see. Question number 1. Are there ends to offer camera customization in the future? Like changing the reticle to centered versus over the shoulder, for example.
So we've actually tried a bunch of camera. Customization seems to me like a great way to kind of
It's kind of similar for that
cut that baby in half. Is that skin that cat? Some horrible analogy that means yes. I think that's a good idea. So
yeah. Like I said, we tried going to a single camera recently, and feedback. You guys didn't like it, so we went back to what we had. That's how we we try things up. How we do it.
Cool. All right, so the next one on the list is definitely going to be one for you, for sure.
Yes.
Which is, how is armor penetration calculated? This is math, which has never really been a friend to me, so I'm going to let Mark take this one.
Indeed, yeah. And so it's actually not as complicated as it may seem. There's actually kind of a follow-up here that the follow-up being, how does that work with resist stats that feed into it? And so basically, armor penetration, essentially what we do is we take the uncapped value, right? So basically your armor penetration is working against the uncapped value. So to give you an example, I'm going to use some make-believe numbers here. So
all right,
say
Professor
you have,
Hallish, give us the make-believe numbers.
So say you have 75% crushing mitigation, right? And you have a 50% crushing mitigation cap, right? So that means you're running around and basically you have normally 50% crushing mitigation. Because you're capped, you're 25 over the cap, and then somebody comes at you and they have 35% crushing penetration. So how does that work? Basically, because we go against the uncapped mitigation first, that 35 is subtracted from your 75, not your 50. That actually leaves you with 40. So what that really means is there's value to having more.
Overclocking or overcapping.
Right. There's always advantage, and actually
that's kind of cool.
The next question, which is how does that work with how do the resist stats feed into the final mitigation value? It's basically that's kind of the reason we do it, right? Just so there's value to getting over the cap, right? Because even though a guy has 35% penetration, he's only actually taking down to 40.
Cool.
Because you've stacked up a bunch of.
I did not know that. I think it's actually pretty cool. So I think that covers both of those two questions, right?
Yeah, that's basically both of them right there.
A follow-on that is different but similar. How does?
Well, wait a second, because I have a question that's relevant to what you just talked about.
Stop calling me.
This is from Arcade99. Arcade99 says there are two different caps: the resistance cap, which is 35%, and the final mitigation cap, dependent on class/promotion. Please explain how the 35% resistance cap affects.
So always we go against the uncapped mitigations first. So basically, we're always applying penetration to the uncapped mitigation, right? And then after that calculation is done, whatever's left is applied. The cap is applied. So if in the example I just gave, if it was only 25%, then you'd still be capped. You'd still be 50%, even though he's coming in at 25% penetration. You're still, basically, as Todd said, overclocking. And that basically still gives you that benefit, no matter where it is, basically, right?
Okay, so the question was about final mitigation. Is that another layer then past that, or is that part of that same?
It's part of it all feeds into the same stats at the end.
Okay.
At the end of the day, so
cool. All right, did we get it, Val?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. Okay, so the next one is similar, which is critical strike versus anti-critical strike.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So that's actually much simpler, right? So critical strike literally just goes against, or anti-critical strike and critical strike literally go against one another, and basically one is subtracted from the other. So what that basically means, though, too, is that there's really no such thing as a guaranteed critical hit, because if the person has any anti-critical strike at all, and we're pretty liberal to give you at least a little bit in most of the trees, and particularly the skill trees, if you made any real progress in any one of them, you're going to have a little bit of it. So basically that means there's no such thing as a guaranteed critical strike, but I mean, 98 is still pretty darn close, right? So basically it's pretty much one versus the other. So if you have 30% critical chance and somebody has 20% anti-critical strike, then your chance is 10.
Okay.
Right. So I mean,
So-
that's very straightforward.
Blazin said, is it possible to apply this overcapping armor versus armor penetration
Mhm.
to crit strike versus anti-crit strike? With a 50% strike cap, with a 50% crit strike cap, people able to get around 40% anti-crit. It really hurts classes who rely upon crit strike. If we could overlap crit strike, then that would help against high anti-crit strike targets.
Sure. And like I said, like for things of that nature, like anything's really possible. One thing to keep in mind too is or that I can, basically. So I've basically gone through and recently did a balance pass on some of those because there are some in the talents. There's some outliers as far as defenses go. So some of those were coming a little higher than I like. So those have come down a little bit, but that suggestion isn't bad. I don't expect. At the end of the day, that's going to be, hopefully it's not going to be as possible as we let mitigation, because we are pretty, we let you get a fair amount of mitigation. But as far as anti-critical strike versus critical strike, those are a little more toned down.
Yeah.
So
I do that. So I will say that
it's a good idea.
we should talk about it.
Yeah.
So one thing I
don't
like
mind
about it
safety
is
valves.
I like safety valves, and I like the consistency. Right. The fact that these are two different things that are actually fairly similar, and they
really are.
work two different ways. I mean, in an ideal world, I would have both of them be very simple because that's easier for
Right.
players. But in this situation, I think that the complexity is actually warranted. Like, it makes sense to me that we allow overclocking, because if we didn't, then you'd literally be in a situation where you're like, well, I don't really have a choice to make here
Right.
anymore. I just don't clearly want any more of that. And this
Sure.
actually gives you a reason. So so this is a good one to talk about. I think that idea has some merit. And when Blair is back, if he ever comes back, then we can certainly get in a room and talk about it. So, all right, so I will move on to the next one. So this is basically a question about respec. So there's two types, right, of potential respec in our system, and I'm going to talk about both of them, even though the question was really only about the talent tree respec. So you've got talent tree respec, you've got passive training potentially respec, and you've also got just swapping out disciplines, which I guess is kind of a third type. It's not really a respec, but it's similar. So the third of those we already do, right? You can already go back and swap those things out in the temples. The passive training one, I don't know that we actually need because it's kind of all additive, right? The assumption is you're kind of marching down these trees all the time. We do need to at some point get some kind of a catch-up mechanic, but I don't know that we actually need that catch-up mechanic to peel points off. Maybe, maybe not. So we'll look at that in the future. So the last one, which is actually the specific question that was asked here, is about having an allowance for respec of talent points. So the short answer is yes, I do have a plan for that. The long answer is I'm not really ready to talk about it quite yet, but it will be something we'll be talking about here in the next couple months. So I guess that's kind of the best I can give you now is, yeah, I've got a plan for it. I do recognize that that's something we should do. The intent is not to always force people to go through the same kind of level up. The level up is really there more to teach people the game. So so I'm generally a fan of respec. You can probably tell that by the fact that we put discipline in already. I'll give you one other piece of information though, is that we will, if and when it comes online, it would likely also be back at the temple only through some kiosk or something, because I don't want people doing it on the fly out of the field, right? I don't want you seeing who's on the horizon and suddenly respecing your entire promotion class based on who you're going to be fighting.
Right.
So,
Flip from healer to DPS.
yeah, I don't want it to be quite that fast, because if we do that, people will bot it and literally hit a button and rebuild their whole character. So so there you go. There's a partial answer. Next one. What do we got? What's question 7?
Is it your intention that veteran players have access to God's Reach to level up vessels in safety?
Yeah, I mean, the God's Reach really is to allow people to get their character up to that minimum viable point. The other thing that it allowed us to do is I was able to take all that content and move it out of the campaign worlds. So the campaign worlds were really bloated with like I would say 80 or 90% of the content in the campaign worlds were made as part of the level system, and therefore players who were coming in at max, which is most of the players who want to participate in the campaign, found that all to be wasted space and wasted content. So we had all these monsters and all these harvestables and all this area in the game that you were running around that was being used basically by nobody. So that's why we pulled it out there. So I mean, the leveling treadmill is so damn fast in God's Reach, and we're going to make it even faster when we add respec and stuff like that. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I want the campaign to be about the campaign. I want it to actually be about the strategy game. That to me is way more important. So, yep, there you go. That's my answer.
All right. Let's see. Next question. So,
any questions on that one, Val? Okay, cool.
All right. Moving on then. Once we capture a fort or keep, what will we do there? Are there capture objectives going to be hubs for player activity, or is that the temple role?
So yeah, so the temple is really a fallback location. So the forts and keeps are supposed to be your in the campaign hub that you range out of. You basically come back, and right now one of the big pieces that we're trying to work on now for the next milestone is reinforcing that strategy game, right? We've got a list of all the different services that we want to offer, and we need to tie those into the strategy games. There's a list, we have a list of kind of services that we want to do, a number of which are like strategy game level services that aren't even in the game right now. So we're going to make that a major focus between now and, over the next couple months.
Okay, Galvia said, we need some lower ranked resources, R7 to R8. Campaign Worlds 2 then, because on a passive wipe, our 10 resources will be a pain to harvest.
That's a good point. That's a valid point. Yeah. So that may be something that we'll want to do right after a passive wipe, but as the game marches forward in time, we'll generate worlds that then kind of bring that level up.
I mean, that's kind of core of the game, too,
yeah,
right?
It's core of the game.
Changing it up.
And the good news is we can, right? Like we can do that. So actually, there's a thing that I think we're going to be talking about that's happening next week. Is that right? It ties into this. So anyway,
back to the forts and keeps thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hookham said, if forts and keeps are supposed to be fallback locations, will we be able to recall to them?
No, forts and keeps are not the fallback locations. Those are your staging bases. Those are the things you're supposed to go and actually capture, and you can respawn there. The temple is the fallback location. The temple is, I need some basic place for people to land if they have lost their last fort or keep.
Kind of like your last.
It's the entry place when you first come in, and it's the place you fall back to. So that's it. If I said the forts and keeps were fallback, that was not correct. That's not what I meant to say.
It's kind of like the reward.
And
right?
then
That's
Kim Dredd says, is farming still going to be a thing? If so, how will that work? Will they be in EKs or points of interest we have to control during the campaign?
Yeah, so that's part of the whole strategy game thing that we're talking about right now. So all of that is on the table and being discussed. I'm going to say maybe. There have been a few of these things that we've put in that sounded really cool in the very beginning, but as we played them, they didn't seem to be as cool as we thought. For example, hey, let's have lots of ways to get food in spring and summer, and then let's dry up those ways to get food in fall and winter. That sounds really thematic and cool. In actuality, playing the game, it's not as cool as you would think.
It's cool until you start to starve.
It's cool until you start to starve, and then you find it really, really aggravating. So I'm going to say maybe. I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, but unless I hit a point where I'm like, I can definitely see how that's going to actually be fun, not just it's theoretically makes sense, but I actually see what the fun activity is around it, I'm going to leave it on the maybe list. So it's not out, but it's not absolutely in. So, cool. We had hit a point about the rarity of resources, and I want to come back to that. So just y'all remind me, because we have some stuff we're going to talk about what's coming in the near future, and it does touch on the rarity of resources. I want to make sure that I make that point. All right, but in the meantime, let's go on with the questions and get through it. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so this page right here that says before we start,
we should probably do that.
Done that first.
Cover that, but that's all right.
People, I mean, what? You're just gonna let us? Come on, give us some help here. Throw us.
Fast man, Todd Coleman.
Yeah,
and I'm not
right.
the boss of you.
That is true. You are not the boss of me. You could
Yeah,
help me.
I just
every
read
now
every
and
card.
Would that help? Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to the August Q&A. J. Todd Coleman, Creative Director of Crowfall. Professor Hallish here. Senior principal? What's your title?
Principal nowadays.
Designer. Principal designer, and we've already gone through your questions, but I will now go through the things we're supposed to say at the beginning. So first of all, we had a great response on the Fortunes of War update, which was 5.100. It continues to see a great response, so I want to thank everybody who's gotten in and tried that out. The next update is in progress. I've kind of alluded to it. We haven't quite got to the point where we want to announce that yet, but we do have a few things that are coming very, very soon that I think we are going to talk about. The Trial of Gaia went live yesterday. That one runs through the 3rd, yes, we believe. Okay, and that one has a, let's see, so we've also got another test reward that's coming out. There's a tankard for playing on test between now and September 9th, and it is called the Tankard of Dawn. You've got something else up, don't you? Okay. You're not following the thing. Okay, so I'm going to, that's not even on this page. I'm going to jump to it since apparently what you guys are seeing there. So we are going to be running an event this weekend, which I named, and Debbie Sue didn't love the name, but she eventually went with it anyway, called the Decapathon.
Which is an amazing name.
It's an awesome name. So here's the way the Decapathon works, right, is we've changed the timing a little bit of decapitation so you can actually do it now, right? So now when somebody falls, while it's not risk-free, you actually have a chance to pull out Spirit Axe, whack off their head. So you can pick up that head, you can take it back to the temple and throw it into the sacrifice brazier and sacrifice that head to the gods. At the end of the weekend, when are we going to actually run the test? When's it going to start and when's it going to end?
It's Friday.
Okay, starting on Friday.
And it ends on Tuesday.
Okay, so ending on Tuesday, and all of this, I'm not onto the details. I'll let you guys go to the website and check it out, and you can. Okay, so crowfall.com/decapathon, and you can see the exact details of when it starts and when it ends. Whichever faction in the trial sacrifices the most heads will determine what trophy we're going to give, and it's an attachable, and you can see them right there. It's either a Sunfire skull, an Earthvein skull, or a Moonstone skull, which I like to call the Terminator skull because it looks to me like a Terminator skull. But that'll determine the reward, and actually everybody will get the reward, correct? It's just which one we give is going to depend on the number of
Right, if
of
you're
heads.
on the leaderboard, which means you kill someone or you get killed.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you participate at all, if you craft a single thing, if you get killed, if you kill something, log in and play a little bit and you'll get onto the leaderboard, and then you'll get one of these skulls. Which skull you get depends on who chops off the most heads in the Decapathon. So, okay, other things I was supposed to say, but nobody reminded me to say, is you're supposed to share your war stories, #war stories, hashtag Crowfall game. Is that it? Oh, you can also check out the war stories at crowfall.com/war stories, which is pretty cool, actually. You should go and do that. And then there's a whole bunch of join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter and all the other. You can find us. They're whispering, whisper, whisper, whisper. Okay, so do we want to take, this is outro stuff. Do y'all want to take some questions just in general? What you got? Do you have any for us, Val?
Let me see. Any content coming out, oh, this is from Auden, hold on, Auden423. Any content coming out in the near future for small groups of 1 to 3 players to do? Seems like a lack of things to do for these players.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any that are coming imminently, right? Like any new changes that are specifically geared towards those smaller groups. In the longer frame, when I'm thinking through the strategy game elements that we're bringing online, there absolutely are some additional activities that we have planned for smaller groups, for group on group. And most of those, some of them will be very, very popular because they're things you guys have been waiting on for a while. Because they tie into how do I get resources and things like that. Some of them are things that we've been talking about and even did concept art way back in the Kickstarter days and we're just getting to now. But those are all really next milestone. Those aren't for this milestone. For this next update. Are we talking about the update next week or we're not? No? Okay. Keep an eye early next week because we have something else that's going to be dropping next week that's pretty cool. What else we got, Val?
This is from Galvia. The change to 3M melee range and the last major update feels really awful right now. There are a lot of problems with melee characters being kited way too easily, animations not lining up, and frustrating near misses. The range was definitely too far in the past, but are there plans for a tweak to the range in the future?
I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah,
this is
I mean,
really
those-
more your area.
Right.
than-
Yeah. I mean, that's something we're going to continue to adjust. And in fact, there's already things as far as like making combat feel better. That's something we've been addressing internally. So that will only continue to improve, and be much better in the future. So yeah, I mean, we're continuing to work on
What's
that.
your feeling on? So do you agree that it was too far out at 5 meters?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was, and that was for a good reason, because the tech that basically served the technology we had at the time.
Yeah.
Right. We're able to be much tighter now. We might be.
You think we overcompensated?
Yeah, we
maybe?
probably did a little bit.
If
but,
only there was a number in between 3 and 5
there
that we could
possibly
try.
possibly is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm open to trying it. Ultimately, I kind of trust you guys to deal with that level of detail. That's something that actually there's a particular challenging part, I think, of design is that. How do you make everything feel right? Because it's a combination not just of the controls, it's also the UI, it's also the animations, because those have to feel right. It's network latency, like it touches a whole bunch of different things
I mean,
combined.
like, so many things go into combat, making combat feel correct, right? And basically all the things you just mentioned, right?
And a bunch more.
And a
Right,
bunch
for
more,
sure.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
They all work together, and that's basically something we're going to continue to polish and tighten up more and more, as we march on.
So, cool. All right.
Okay, so Pedrazom wants to know, what about campaign balancing? Right now, the majority of people are in the balance faction. It's kind of discouraging to play others. I would suggest that rewards be based on the ratio that the faction population is, considering the campaign population. In the same sense, one buff would be applied to make that kind of thing possible. Let's say Order has 10% of the campaign population. It would have a 90% buff to all stats, considering the active average of last hours or something.
So, okay, so there's a lot packed in there. Let me try and unpack it a little bit. So, I've been very hesitant to do anything that simply tilts the balance of the game based on something like that. So, I agree that there's some challenges. This is definitely a problem area. I also agree that there's some Uncle Bob issues related to it. Like we have some point scoring issues and things like that we need to address, and we're trying to address those some in the strategy layer. What I would like to try first before we go with anything more draconian is trying to make strategic decisions that are mutually exclusive. So by that I mean, if I am playing on a team, there are 3 options available to us to achieve some objective, like get victory points. I cannot simply throw more people and more time at it and get all 3. Instead, I have to make a choice, and by doing that, it leaves the other 2 paths open for the other team to go and choose, and then that actually starts to bring strategy into play, right? Where now we can make choices. If we have a smaller team, well, maybe there are objectives that are more suited to smaller teams and smaller numbers. So I would like to go down that. That's the kind of conversations we're having internally right now when I talk about the strategy layer. Is right now what we have is the nice foundation of a strategy layer without a bunch of rules built on top of it. So to drill it out, right now, what's the strategy to win in a trial?
Just
Do everything.
do everything.
Like,
Do it all.
do it all. Capture all the locations and defend all the locations, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's no alternate in a game like, I don't know, Catan or even like Ticket to Ride or something like that. You can have other strategies and be like, well, I'm not going to be able to win on army, but I could potentially win by having the longest roads because I get bonus points for that. That's what our strategy game is missing right now. It's actually missing the alternative strategies that really make it a viable game. So I would like to concentrate on trying to firm that up first. If that doesn't work, then we can look at potentially some kind of underdog mechanics. Even then, I would like to keep it. I wouldn't like to make it so. I just don't like generally handicaps. Like I don't
Just
like
thumb on the scale.
thumb
kind of
on the
stuff.
scale handicaps. I'd rather do something like, all right, well, here's an objective that's for a smaller group that if they do this for this god, they get a benefit that's going to help offset that. Things like that. So I guess the summary is definitely agree that there's a problem. Not sold that that's the right solution, but I will definitely spend a pretty significant chunk of my days in the next couple months trying to solve these problems. So how's that?
That's good.
Reasonable?
Galbia wants to know if we have any updates on guild storage. It's the #1 quality of life problem for guilds these days. The new banking systems are awesome. Can't wait for them to be finished.
Yeah, I need to go and follow up on the new banking systems in particular because that's an easier change, right? We set the item limit numbers to a certain threshold that was clearly higher than it was before, but not so high that my engineering team was freaked out that we were going to break the bank, so to speak. Break the bank. It was nice, right? They weren't freaked out. Susie's giving me the worst look now. Freaked out that we were going to break the bank. So what I'll do now is I'll actually follow up to this by going back and asking, hey, how are we looking on that? Is there some more overhead that we can raise that? Because that's a fairly easy answer. The harder answer is that we tried to add the guild bank chest into the buildings and place them in the EKs. And at first it looked like it worked, but then it turned out if the server reboots, all of those items were lost. So I decided that that was actually not in a state that I wanted to put it out to everyone. There's more work that has to be done there, and that work just hasn't bubbled to the top. I totally get it. It is quality of life. It's just that from my standpoint, I have to judge quality of life with things like getting the dregs done. And so ultimately something has to give. If we have somebody that can look at it, I'll have somebody take a look at it. If not, I'll definitely try and see if we can get those bank limits adjusted again because I think that's helpful. It's a stopgap at least. That's it?
Yeah.
Is that all the chatting this time?
Hold on. Hookup has another question. Let's see. The benefit of the respawn crafting. Nope. Whoops. Sorry. The benefit of the respawn outpost is cool. Any plans to add other perks for controlling?
Absolutely, yeah. So in fact, in an ideal world, I would like every one of the outposts to have some service. I think that's really cool. I agree with you. I think that one turned out really cool. I think we need to give the other ones purpose too. And it could be anything from this one acts as a crafting station of a type, or this one acts as a refinery, or this one acts as a banking kiosk. Like simple things like that, I think could actually have a huge impact on making those things have more of a purpose than just, hey, I take it because I want the points. We're also, one thing that we have historically not been able to do with our strategy game is, and this is a little technical, but I'll dig into it anyway, is parcels, strongholds don't have any knowledge of other things around them. So, you know, I could do something inside one like, hey, this is a respawner and it's a respawn statue, so don't allow it to work for anybody unless they're part of the winning faction. No problem. But we couldn't do something like, here's a stronghold, and in order to open it up during the siege window, it has 3 connected outposts or towers. You have to take those first, and then that turns on the window because they had no knowledge of each other. That's something that we're trying to look at fixing as well, because that opens up a whole world of additional possibilities that we simply didn't have the ability to do in the strategy game before now. So this is exactly the kind of stuff that I am up to my neck in right now, is trying to work through and figure out. Yeah. So it's exciting, actually. It's really cool. It'll be really cool to see all of that strategy layer stuff starting to come online. So.
What about passive training? I feel like crafting needs too much time investment before being able to actually deliver good outcomes.
Yeah, so
the blacksmith tree now takes 50 days to max.
This is another area that we've talked about is the game at launch and the game 3 or 6 months after launch will feel very different. So we've even talked about, hey, the first campaigns that come out, let's just kind of put on the seasonal buffs some globals that offset that, so that people, when they first come in, they have kind of a help to be able to get them into those later stage assets, and then we'll walk those off over time after a launch to where we would eventually want to be. So we are talking about that. I recognize that it's just kind of an oddity of the passive training system.
It's the bootstrapping thing, right? It's the bootstrapping issue, right? But again, like I said, the game is sort of built to support that sort of thing. So we can have, we can
totally do that.
Right,
yeah,
change it up.
We can kickstart things like that, or bootstrap things. And then also, that is something that I'm happy about with the magic loot that came in, is that at least gets people to where they're not fighting literally with like sticks.
There's always a baseline,
right? There's at least a baseline. But that said, I do want to try and make sure that the crafting is super important. So I think that's a pretty good potential viable approach to do it. Now, if we do some of the potential catch-up mechanics we've talked about for passive skills would also allow me to kind of jump forward as well. If we do that, my tendency is to make it more based on gold or something that is already central to crafting and harvesting, as opposed to making it based on PvP objectives. So, but that's still up in the air. We're still debating it. So.
Yeah, so along those lines, and you may feel like you've already answered this, because Cerelia wants to know, says, do players lack passive training for crafting and gathering? To be really productive, you need this. How can we keep them in game?
Yeah, well, so that's the catch-up mechanic
Yeah.
that I was just talking about. Is
Okay.
we need to, certainly after the game launches, we need some way for people to be able to catch up but not surpass. And I also don't want that to be something that we sell. It's we want to that doesn't feel right. We talked about it. In fact, originally we had a plan to allow people to kind of trade that back and forth to each other, and they could buy each other VIP. I'm not even sure that we're going to do that, frankly. The market has changed, and kind of our impression of what we should and shouldn't do has also changed. That's
Right.
just market,
And like
market
everything
change.
too, this is also an iterative process, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
We can if something, if things are still too tight even after all that, we can we'll pull back.
But
right?
yeah, but we do need to have that some kind of a catch-up mechanic. Otherwise, what'll happen is second month the game is out, people will say, "Well, I can never catch up and be competitive, so I'm
Yeah,
out,"
which
and
is good
that's
for
clearly not good for the game. So we will figure something out there.
Okay, so Manifesto has a question which I am going to be able to answer. He said, I'm waiting for a sale to buy my brother an account. This is just wishful thinking? We don't have any sales coming up, but we will have a streamathon this weekend during the Decapathon. We've got a schedule up for the various streamers who are going to have their streams running over the weekend, and each of them will have some accounts to give away. So if you want to win another account for yourself or for someone else, just tune into one of these streams, and they will tell you how you have a chance to win a Crowfall
That is
account.
a fantastic answer, Val.
Thank you.
That was very well done. That may be the
All right.
high mark of your entire career here at this company. That was that good of an answer.
Wow. I smell
So for
sarcasm.
some reason, people seem to think that my compliments are not complimentary. I don't understand it.
Because I know you, Todd.
All right, so here's that streaming schedule. It is now up on your screen.
Yes, so tune into one or more of those, and you have a chance to win some Crowfall goodness. Got a question from Croc. The War Tribe loot, will they stay or go away or be reduced? They changed the crafting loop a lot, and in the first years you said everything needs to be crafted. Just wondering what we will get in the...
Yep, so they will change to some degree as we bring more of the world bands on. I'm going to have more control to be able to be granular in what degree of loot that we give out. However, this is something I actually feel like the game needed quite a bit. I feel like we needed a baseline because, again, if players can't get to a minimum viable point, they're not going to participate in PvP. I can't force them to. And nobody actually likes jumping into a game where they feel like they showed up into a gunfight with a knife. And they're not going to do it over and over and over. So I've got to have an answer to that question. So as we have the additional world bands come online, though, you'll start to see me pushing more of the rewards to match that risk-reward spectrum that we've always wanted. And you'll see some of that sooner rather than later.
Balathon wants to know, are there plans to tighten ranged hitboxes? They are currently too forgiving. He can't kill people the way he wants to.
Yeah, that is on the docket to look at again. Again, this goes down to we've done a lot of actually quite a lot of internal changes to just the way the combat engine works to allow us to do things like this. So that is actually on the docket to look at.
Yep. Oh, what's the Decapathon question?
Will the Decapathon be Europe and US together or separated?
They're separated, correct?
No, they're together.
They're together. Oh, it's one
faction.
pool? I
Right.
didn't know that, apparently. So, there you go.
Unified by faction. Peace. Cross.
There you go. I didn't know
There
that.
we go. I think we're good.
Cool. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming by for our August edition of the Ace Q&A, and I'm going to go through the outro things now, even though no one reminded me, because I saw it sitting here. So, Trial of Gaia, don't forget you only have until Tuesday to jump in and get on that leaderboard so you can be part of the Decapathon event this weekend.
Do not miss your cool skull.
Mm-hmm.
Do not miss it.
Decapathon event starts tomorrow and ends on Tuesday. You can show the rewards again if you can. Can you do that? Is that a thing? Can we show the cool rewards? Can we show the cool rewards? Which skull are you going to get? There you go. There's the 3 skulls. If this is your first time watching the show, I want to first of all thank you for coming and being patient and sitting with us for this long. And second of all, remind you that you can always go to crowfall.com to learn more about the game and register for later stages of play testing. If you do have cool war stories, please be sure you share them with us so that we can help boost the signal on that. And lastly, thank you for coming this time, and we'd love to see you again next month. We do these monthly, but not necessarily always at the same time. It kind of moves around a little bit. So stay tuned. We always try to make sure that we announce them beforehand. And again, thanks for coming by, and keep those questions flowing so we'll know what to talk about next month.
Yeah, it was great to see so many new folks, new names in the stream chat today.
Yep.
That was exciting. Thanks for being here.
Cool.
In your accent.
Yep. All right. Decapathon is coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.